All right, good morning, guys. We're opening up the tradingknowledge.com trading room for what do we got? November 19th. We're taking a little break, so we're coming back for a live one. And as always, we have our good friend Dave joining us from Strong Market. So good to see you, Dave.
Good to see you, Dan.
It's been an interesting time these last couple of weeks post-election, even though we still have a decision, but nothing's final in what we're going on right now, right?
Yeah, I don't really have a political bias either way, but it's interesting because all of the mainstream news outlets have completely cut off Trump, and they won't let him talk. They're not covering his stuff. They're like basically they're saying the election is over, right? Except for one newspaper, which is a very right-wing newspaper. It's called the Epic Times, and it says, I don't know if you, gosh,
Yep, got it there. The election is far from over.
Yeah, election is far from over. And one of the articles is kind of interesting because 51,000 ballots in Michigan were returned the day after they were mailed out. Now, how do you get if you mail out 51,000 ballots and you get them back the next day? Hey, the U.S. Postal Service, I love the U.S. Postal Service. I think they're a great organization. I like stuff I like getting stuff in the mail. But for them to return a ballot the very next day after they were mailed seems a little improbable to me.
Yeah, unless everybody was camping out at the post office and they had a super efficient train going on, right?
Yeah, I know. It just seems a little improbable. Also, 10,000 dead people returned to mail-in ballots in Michigan.
That was similar to the one I think in Wisconsin. There was more people voted than were registered, or not even registered, but like available. They had like 101% turnout. I think we talked about that once. That was a good one.
Well, if you're part of that 1%, where are you? Ecuador? And then Barr, the Attorney General, William Barr, has authorized federal prosecutors across the country to pursue substantial allegations of voting irregularities, not fraud, irregularities, in a leaked memo.
That's the part that I don't get either, is you hear about all the legal stuff going on. We're doing this, and you hear from the other side, well, no, judge rejected like 90% of everything and what's happening. And it's not, all the news reports what they want to. No one's consistent. That's what drives me up the wall.
Yeah, well, I think there's been a real separation in the news facilities, like even Fox, though. Fox has been pretty supportive of Republican candidates and the president. But on this, they called it early and they said, no, he lost.
Yeah, they were one of the first ones that were giving Biden the lead. So, yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah. Pretty strange. So the point of this discussion is that there's still a lot of uncertainty out there. There's still, I think it's going to go to the courts. We may not even know who the president is until past January 20th, which is usually the ceremony, right?
Yeah, and I think it's December 15th. I could be wrong on the date. It's somewhere in the middle of December, middle to the second, third, is when the Electoral College actually casts its votes.
That's
so
right.
Even though the populace did what they did, the Electoral College still can do whatever they want to do technically, which is really interesting when you start to look at how the system actually works. But yeah, that's a key point there, is when all those ballots actually get cast from the Electoral College.
Yeah. So there's a lot of uncertainty out there. I think, the market has kind of been in a stall pattern since it went up 1,000 points last Monday. We had gapped up higher by 1,000 points, which is probably the largest gap in the history of the Dow. And maybe not. Yeah, I think it's probably on a percentage basis as well as a point basis. And then you have, basically we just kind of floating sideways here, a little down, a little up, but nothing to speak of. There is not a catalyst here for the market to go up anymore, because we have in the last week we've had Pfizer, we've had Moderna, all indicating that they have a vaccine with more than 90% effective rate, for the COVID. So, hey, and then, so what else, what other good news could we possibly get?
Yeah, it wasn't one, but now they're competing, right? First one comes out at 90. Second one, we're 94.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting fact for you. I ran across last night. We were talking about is So the survival rate is actually 99%, right? Of people that are between who gets it and who passes away, for those that are not as fortunate. Obviously, I'm not trying to belittle anything, but just looking at raw data. So
Right.
it's less than 1% mortality rate. So would you take your chance on something that has a 5% mortality rate? That's one noodle on for a second there.
Which has better odds, you know? I mean,
Right.
yeah,
If you're
right.
playing strictly numbers, I think I'll stick with 99%.
Yeah, that's interesting because the difference in the percentages is about a 400%, well, almost 500% difference.
Right.
Something to think about.
Yeah. I read that. I was like, that's an interesting point of view. Like you say, I'm not one side on the other, just sharing information as I see it, just like political, not one side either way. I just want to share with you guys what I come across because I find it interesting and a different way to think about things. And I think people should be able to think for themselves.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you just need more information. You really need to dig into it. You need to do your due diligence and not just blindly go into this. If they do develop a vaccine, get some data, get some real information behind it. Find out personally what your risk factors are. Not medical advice.
Right.
We always say not financial advice. We're not giving medical advice either.
We're
But
just
certainly
information.
check your risk factors.
Yeah. So speaking of the market, obviously with unknown irrational potential moves, we have been leveraging the VXX strategy. Then we paused until the election. We are still on pause for anybody that's watching after. I did put one on a paper trade. It is positive from last week. I was thinking about closing it yesterday before actually things happened. It was just, I think, raw luck. But I hadn't reached the target to close it, so I left it open. It is still positive right now. It's up $151 on a VXX trade. But yeah, so I'm not doing real trades on it still, but I'm still doing the papers just to watch it. It was close. It was about 30% of the profit target. So it was in that, getting to that realm where I was almost thinking about closing it, but it's not quite. But let me pull over the VXX chart here. I think I have it just so you guys see it. So we can see what that looks like. VXX, there it is. We'll pull it down here. I think it was, let's see, what was last Wednesday? Last Wednesday was the 11th. So that was right on this one. So the day after it did go negative, but as we see, patience wins the race in the VXX strategy as it came right back down. Here's where it was right around 30% of the profit target. Then it's jumped up a little bit, or today we're on this tiny little one. I got to zoom it way in so you can see the candle.
Right.
So we actually have a new Darvis box forming right now. It started on yesterday's candle. So here was trade entry, is right around here. So when it's been in profits the majority of the time this week, it was almost hit the profit target, but we'll ride it out and just play it by the rules. Again, paper trade only, but it is doing what it's supposed to. 92.5% of the time it'll go down.
Yep, that's the beauty of the process. It can jump around a little bit, but you still have that the option premium decay, which puts it in your favor.
And today we see we're right in the middle of the road, hovering right around this zero line on the internals. Same as the volume. We got spaghetti going on, so definite day for a lot of chop here we're in for.
Yep. And very rare yesterday was the first time I think I've seen it in months. It's very rare that we had a positive advanced decline line for most of the day, and up and down volume turn negative. Reversal day, very, very rare. It typically just doesn't happen. You get that at the open a lot, so it'll go down and then it'll go positive, or it'll go up and it'll go negative. But after it's been 2/3 through the day, it's pretty rare for it to go negative. And I don't think it turned there negative until like what was it, like 2 o'clock?
Half an hour to go in the day.
Like 3:30 Eastern, and it turned negative. So very rare for that to happen.
And it's not like there was some major news bombshell that dropped that caused the markets to collapse. I don't think there was anything that was reported at that time that I saw.
No, I didn't see anything either. So those are all, I mean, it's just the market chopping around here. I mean, who knows what the next catalyst is going to be. We've got, I mean, all the news that we've been kind of waiting for, not from from the beginning of the year about the presidency, about a vaccine, is pretty much out now. I mean, unless something really strange happens with the president, the election here, and all of a sudden the story starts to snowball, and all of a sudden saying, hey, look, there's more irregularities than you think. It's not just a few thousand. It's like hundreds of thousands or millions of votes. Or Trump starts to gain traction in some of the court cases. And he's got court cases in Georgia, Georgia, Arizona,
Nevada,
Pennsylvania is a big,
Wisconsin.
Philadelphia, and the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
Yeah, Michigan, there's a bunch of them out there. And so if anything happens with those, we could see maybe that's a catalyst. I mean, if people don't have confidence in the voting system, that it's fair and it's processed, in a timely manner and, according to the law. In fact, speaking of the law in Wisconsin, the clerks who count the ballots got the name of the person who sent the ballot in with their votes, but the person didn't write in their address. They were looking it up in the phone book and writing it in themselves, or searching for it online to try to find a reliable source of information about where the resident lived. Because if it's not filled in, it's not a valid vote.
Sure.
And so they just had a name, and they were trying to figure out where the address was, and they're not supposed to write it onto the ballot, but they did.
Yeah,
so that's another thing, it's like stupid, crazy stuff.
Yeah, you figure they can't manipulate that in any which way. They're there to look at it, not to fill it in.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there was a video showing this one person who was doing the ballot counting, and she was taking the stack of ballots, running it through the machine for the count, taking them back to the beginning of the machine and running them through again.
Oh, jeez.
So it's like,
that's what I don't understand, is there's so many reports of all this bad activity going on, but yet you don't see it come to fruition anywhere. Like, there's all the talk of the Dominion machines that are created for Venezuela, and they're created with backdoors so they can modify votes. But yet then they say, nope, this is the most secure we've ever seen. It's like, where's the truth? Who do you know who to believe anymore?
Yeah, that's the worst part, because once you lose faith, see, the entire financial system is based on trust.
Yep.
And we know that when we buy a stock and then we sell it, there's a settlement process. The DTCC does all the settlement of stocks and securities across pretty much the world. And there's a tremendous amount of trust there, because if they mess up, they'll make it right. Well, how do you have real validation and trust in the voting system if all of these incidences really come out and come to light and say, hey, yeah, there is a problem here? How do we have trust in the voting system?
Right.
That's the basic system of the democracy of the United States.
Yep. And I think it kind of hit me when I first started voting years ago. It's like, I take a pen and a paper and I fill it in, and this works across the country. That was even before like the digital age. It's like, and now how are we at 2020 and we're still a paper system for voting? I don't understand it.
Yeah, that kind of is mind-boggling, isn't it?
I think that's the number one thing that has to change, and I don't know how long it's going to take. It's going to change eventually. Maybe this will be the catalyst for it. Like you say, there's not many catalysts left for good things, but there's a lot of potential catalysts for bad. And speaking of one, this may or may not be one, but it's an interesting topic that I wanted to get your point of view on. Is, what do you think about all this new discussion of forgiving all the student loans suddenly?
I heard that it wasn't a total forgiveness. It was limited to like $10,000 per student.
Okay, so I haven't seen the fine details, but I've seen a lot of people floating around stuff. So I was going to.
Well, I think it's Elizabeth Warren. Yes, it was Elizabeth Warren who called Joe Biden. I think it was a few weeks after the election, and she was a proponent of that policy to forgive student debt. Of course, she was also a president hopeful who dropped out of the race. But my understanding was that in the next stimulus bill, there is a provision already for a $10,000 forgiveness of student debt. And my view of that is it's very deflationary. Very deflationary. Because when you take that debt out of the system, there is no more money. You're basically reducing money from the system. There's no more payments going back in. If they forgive $10,000, those students are not making those payments on that loan. And so it's deflationary, which means that the dollar's got to rise. The dollar has to rise because if you deflate the financial system,
yeah, there's just less, right?
the supply, there's less. Now, here's another thing too that I was thinking about. In fact, it woke me up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I hate those. It woke me up at 2 o'clock in the morning thinking, there's a lot of money flowing into the stock market. And what is that doing? It's taking dollars out of the system. What happens if they do the stimulus bill and all of a sudden every student that owes, it has $10,000 forgiven, and you're talking about millions and millions of students. So it could be as high as 10 billion or maybe even 100 billion. I mean, it could be even more than that.
Oh, I got a good one for you. I just found
Taken
that.
out, right?
So here's the Washington Post. Oh, it went to the bottom for some reason.
Good morning, Mark.
Hey, I gotta watch the chat. Hey, Mark's here. Calls for Biden to cancel student loan debt grow alongside tensions in the policy. This is less than an hour old. Make this go away. Political pressure, blah, blah, blah. We'll scroll down here. Yep, there's your 10,000 forgiveness during the time. It should be done immediately, canceling at least a portion of the $1.6 trillion in debt.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So that would be like 10,000 times 44 million. It's at 44 billion?
440 billion?
44 billion, right? Yeah.
10,000 times 4, that's too big of numbers for my head, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It's not 44 trillion because it's only 1.6 trillion. So I'm figuring it's probably 44 billion, which would basically eliminate about 60% or 40%.
Yeah, either way, that's definitely a big potential mover of.
Yeah, those numbers are too big for me. But anyway, so I think he could do all of it. If he did the 1.6 trillion, well, that's $1.6 trillion taken out of the system. Now the US dollar is going to be just it's going to be on a tear.
And speaking of that dollar, we know we have a asymmetric trade on that. And I have a long-term chart on the UUP that I know you and I have talked about that I'll share with people here because we have a very long trend line here.
Yeah, actually the UUP was up. My profit on the day was up $1,350 at the open. And it's just a small move. I mean, it was a really tiny move on the dollar.
Yeah, this is a weekly chart that we're looking at. This goes back to 2012 back here.
Yeah.
But we drew this way back about as far as we could since it's been in this uptrend. And we just, these are at the bottom of the
was
bottom.
actually 2008. The real bottom was in 2008, and it's been in an uptrend ever since. And we're hitting close to that trend line right now.
Yeah, it's definitely, we saw it last week, bounced right off it. It hasn't hit it, but we see the pressure of it getting close. One big push down here that rallied right back up. That was probably March. Yep. And then end of August. And then again here. So it's an interesting one to watch.
Yeah, if we get a bounce off of that, I think it's game over.
And that one, yep. And then just, I did see it since it is Thursday. We'll cover that. This was another unemployment claims day. They were expecting 707, or they're forecasting it. And of course it was worse. So we're moving back up. And Bloomberg actually had this as their headline of this is the first time that jobless claims rose for the first time. So they were trending down for a couple weeks apparently, even though I don't think it was much. Might have been like tens of thousands down versus hundreds. But
Yeah.
now we're going back up again. So that's not good news. And there's more people. It's going to be happening higher because in my state here, they're actually calling for another 4-week pause where there's no more gatherings, no more in dining, no more group events. So a lot of people may be getting laid off again if they're waitresses and staff and anything like that, and these small businesses that are going to get hit again.
Well, the schools in New York City are closed again.
I saw that big headline. Yeah, ours went all remote 2 weeks ago. It's all distance learning for our district in the area. So our kids are all doing everything remote too. So yeah, it's coming around. It's not even winter yet.
Yeah.
What's
I
going
heard a discussion between a couple of guys online. I think it was a podcast or something. They were talking about they both have teenage kids, and they both admitted, the teenagers said, "I haven't learned anything all year."
Right. Yeah, they're not teaching. They're trying to. It's like a self-study now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they haven't learned anything. Can you imagine?
Oh, it's just crushing the kids.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to be so far behind. Not only that, but think about, okay, so they're not in the habit of learning anymore. Getting back into school is going to be even tougher for them. Getting back into the habit if we do get the vaccine and they can go back to school. What about the kids going to college? Do they really? I mean, let's say somebody wants to go to a private college today. Are they going to pay $40,000, $50,000 a year to study from home?
Yeah, to do Zoom, or the ones that are there. Here's the fun part too: is so the next week is Thanksgiving, right? So people typically come home. They're now saying no gatherings, nobody outside your house that should be at your house for Thanksgiving. If you have kids in college, tell them to stay there.
Oh,
what is that?
Oh my gosh. What?
Yeah, it literally said that. I'm like, you're nuts.
That is crazy.
Here's the worst headline I saw. Pennsylvania, overcoming in your neighborhood. That governor's trying to mandate wearing a mask inside your house.
I would have some choice words for anyone who tried to enforce that.
Yeah.
And
good luck on that, sir.
Yeah. And maybe a baseball bat near the door. Don't come in here trying to enforce your face mask in my house.
Steven says his high schools are going to be college style. Yeah, we have something that are already kind of like that, where they do block classes and they do things for, here's your project, you guys figure it out. It's a way that one of the schools around here does it. It's even more than it used to be now. So it's like, yeah, here's your assignments. You guys figure out when to get them done. And if they're late, they're late. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, kids are like 10% of work's done and they're wondering why. It's like, you can't let teenagers be self-sufficient, because they're not. You give them a choice and they're not going to do it.
No, they're not going to do it. They're going to be on their Xbox or whatever games they play these days.
Yeah.
We've rolled over again. Market's rolling over here. We had a little rounded top there, and we're starting to go negative again. So we didn't hold that positive bounce that we got.
Internals are coming back down.
Yeah, we basically just filled the gap early in the morning, and now we're rolling over again. So we shall see what we shall see.
We should take a look at this as well. We're getting a big streak here as well. What do we got? 2+ weeks, the 4th to the 18th.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up, because there's a lot of interesting things in the spreadsheet. The biggest one, of course, is the average volume per share. I mean, the market has been up actually since the 28th, after the 28th drop at 943 there. The market has really been up, but look at the ABS. Why is the ABS so high?
Right.
Why is it, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And we've dropped down to, what was the lowest point in the third column of the spreadsheet was 46%, I believe, at 46%, which is just a dramatic low. We've had a lot of bullish herding, so a lot of people are piling in. We've had a few gaps here, but nothing dramatic yet. So we'll see what happens after today, but we've had the buy-sell signal drop from 16 down to 8, so that's kind of going negative here. One of the questions that we had from Kevin was how we use the market timer spreadsheet for swing trading.
Oh yes, I forgot about this. Good call.
Yeah, so let's go over that now. The most important thing that you can think about when you use the spreadsheet for swing trading, which is typically a 2 to 5 day period. Let's say you're doing something overnight or a couple of days or 3 days or 4 days. The most important thing is that everything lines up. You really want everything to line up. And so if you go to that 16, the first thing I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at where the buy sell signal is in relation to the 21 and 27 day sum. That's why I put them next to each other. When you get an oversold at the 27-day sum up in the 1700s, when it's highlighted, sell is highlighted, that means it's overbought. And when you hit a 16 at the same level, then I start to pay attention here. That's where I want to look at taking on a swing trade. Before that, I wouldn't. Now, I wouldn't take a look at MT volatility because that's a long-term indicator. I do look at the bullish herding. The bullish herding is really full. So it's not a perfect signal. It is not a perfect signal. I like to see something where the bullish herding is starting to tail off, and we only have it in the last column there. But if you want to do a very short-term trade because it is overbought on the 27, 21-day sum, and the buy-sell signal is at 16. Now, the range of the buy-sell signal can go to whatever, but the highest I've seen is like 2021. So, and that was back in, I think that was sometime during the summer there. It's probably the middle of the year. But so 16 is high. Really anything over 10 is high. So 16 is very high. And when you got that coupled with the 21 or 21-day sum over that magic 1500 mark, and you've got the average value per share over 2,000, that's probably the last thing I would look at. Look at the 21, 27, look at the buy sell, then look at the average value per share. And I say, yeah, that sounds like a pretty good swing trade. So I take a short position, either at the close or maybe at the early, maybe the next morning. And then you got that 317 point drop there, which is what you're looking for. You're not in, if you're doing swing trading, you're not in for the long term, you're in for a short term. You've got to be in for 2 to 3 days at the most, and you would cover on that day. But you have to have those things lined up. If you don't, it's not going to work out very well.
I think a good point there probably is swing trading has also changed, as with any other trading, with the market characteristics, whereas swing to other people may have meant I leave this open for 2 weeks versus, hey, we have way too much erratic possibilities right now. You don't want to be leaving positions open, not checking it at least once a day. So that's why you get your profits here and you say, all right, whether you're closing this at the end of the day or you watch potential open the next day, you know, because you saw this, hey, this dropped off, this is starting to turn red. You know, if you're looking at this, you might not want to close it out because this is the last thing you saw.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point because, you know, we've had days now where we're down 900 and then we're up 500. So you got to close them out when you have that profit. And typically, you know, you're right. Swing trade could go anywhere from 3 to 5 to 10 days. But in this environment,
take your profits earlier than normal.
Take them, man. Take them. But you got to have those lined up. Now, the other thing I would look at, but I wouldn't really pay too much attention to, the 21, 27-day sum in the buy-sell signal is the best for the short-term swing trades, in my opinion. That's why I put them all together. That's what I look for. Those are pretty reliable. The only thing that did not line up is the bullish herding in this case. I would love to see bearish herding in the first column when the buy-sell signal hits 16 and the 7-day sum hits the 1500 or more. That would be an ideal setup. So maybe I might I might do another contract or something, or I might, you know, buy a little bit more if that was the case. But those are the only 3 things I look at: the bullish, bearish herding, 21, 27-day sum, and the buy-sell signal for swing trades. That's it. That's your short-term signal. If the bullish, so, you know, in this case, the bullish herding didn't cooperate. So I wouldn't go big on that. Those are the only 3. Everything else is pretty much longer term. The price anomaly you could look at and say, yeah, okay, maybe there's a potential there for a reversal the next day.
A potential contributing factor, right?
Yeah, I'd put it lower, very low on the list.
So Steven's just qualifying. So you wouldn't enter a position unless you see 16 or so, I would say in the teens, 15 and above, and the 27-day sum is highlighted. Probably either 21 or 27, right? Because you're looking at both of these.
Yeah, either one. Yeah, either one.
So if either one of these are highlighted and these are in the mid-teens, is a good signal. So if we look back,
Anything over 10 actually would be. Yeah,
so let's go take a look at that for short.
And there's a bullish one if you're doing a swing trade when it was minus 13 there. Hit minus 10, minus 13. The next day it hit minus 13, but we had bullish hurting.
Yeah, so there's a nice 1-day swing where double digits, highlighted, bearish hurting.
Yep.
Starting to fade.
But it started to fade because we didn't have anything in the first column. And so that's typically a good, I would look either that day or the next day. We went to minus 13 the next day, but bullish hurting in the first column. That's what I'm looking for. So if it's the buy sell signal is down into the teens, we got highlighted, and it doesn't have to be the same day, 21, 27 days, something. It doesn't have to be the same day, but it has to be there with a low buy sell signal and bullish hurting. That's a good swing signal up. In that case, you may have kept it a few days. You would have done really well.
Yeah. So in this case, there's a good argument for if we use this to trigger double digits, highlighted, 2 to actually days highlighted, so you can go long here. The next day you get this, and you see this. So now you have first day. This could be enough to keep you in for another day. Then you might say, all right, yeah, I'm at my target. There's 768 points on the Dow. That's a nice trade. Yes,
absolutely. So those three things have to line up: the bullish, bearish hurting, 21, 27-day sum, and the buy sell signal. If those line up, your probabilities. We only talk in probabilities, right?
Right.
Your probabilities are very high. Scroll through the spreadsheet, see if we can find one that did not line up well. So here's the 21, 27-day sum, way overbought, right? No bearish hurting whatsoever, none. And we didn't get much of a decline. We didn't get any kind of a decline at all. In fact, we went negative, but we still didn't get a decline. So all of those things have to line up perfectly. I like to see the bearish hurting. If we don't get it, yeah. Actually, in that case, right there on the 814, you see the buy sell signal do a double top at 10 and then come down at 9. You could have taken a short position, but you would have gotten a little bit there.
You had to wait through one day, and then it paid you back a little bit. But these were the days that were smaller, tiny little. This was, let's see, early August. I was trying to think if that was a holiday time, because that was definitely low activity was happening there.
Yeah. Yeah, he had a couple of days where it was down, but it was nothing major. I definitely would have gotten out if I didn't see a pretty big drop.
So Steven's asking what negative number in the buy sell would be a signal for long. That's what we're talking about exactly there. So hopefully you got that. So negative 10 for a buy, positive 10 for a sell, and up into the teens. So that's when it's overbought versus oversold.
Right. Anything plus 10 or big over is overbought. Anything minus 10 or lower is oversold.
You got it. Yep. Minimums are at least double digits. So hopefully that makes sense for everyone there. If there's ever any questions, yes, as always, shoot them in. We will cover things again as we need to. Absolutely. So right now we're losing our first column, which lined up for some downside. We were at positive 10. So look at just recently here. We had a long streak. Whoops, I don't need to make that bigger. Trying to highlight. So the 10, 15, 16, here's boom. We hit, we just talked about this, right? Probably. I've already lost track of which column I was on.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Highlighted 16, short trade here, did it again. Highlighted at a 10. So you could say, hey, this highlighted again. We're at another extreme. This you don't like, so not full position. You're scaled back because we got full bullish hurting.
Right.
You could say, hey, we got a highlight and a double digit. That's a potential for a short. I'm going to go less contracts. Boom. 2 days are done.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah, if the bearish and bullish herding doesn't line up, then it's not a full, you wouldn't want to go full contracts
Scale
on it.
back, exactly. So wait for that again. So now we're on the downtrend. So now if we're looking for the pendulum to swing for a long, we're waiting for negative 10s. So it's not long territory yet. It's not short territory because we're back down in single digits for swing trades. So it's all a matter of patience and timing, waiting for the instruments to align to give you the highest probability. Steven's got it. Awesome. Good. I'm glad that's going to help a lot. That's what we hope. That's what we hope for.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are the three things I work. Typically, in the current environment, the swing trades to the short side are going to be shorter in length than the ones on the long side.
Interesting theory I thought of as you were talking about the AVS too, and this is complete, like I just thought, it's like we're saying it's definitely higher and we had a lot of up movement.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts of, this is just because we have more government prop ups and just buying to cover the potential selling that might be trying to happen, and they're just filling those orders to prop the market back up so we have higher AVS than normal because they're trying to just not let it drop?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a really good question. I don't know. It
Just
seems like they want to save their firepower for something where the market drops rather than trying to continue to boost it higher, at least keep it at the same level. If I'm in a strategy session with Jerome Powell and they want to prop up the markets, they're not going to go in. I wouldn't be surprised if they're in trying to prop up the markets now, but I wouldn't want to come in with, a $1 trillion buy order and gap up the market 1,000 points. That's kind of a obvious footprint, right?
right.
And they want to save their ammunition for when the market goes down a lot, to start to use that as an opportunity to prop up the market, to put in the buy orders to get things turned around, not to just, skyrocket it so that, and use all their firepower while it's still going up, because that's their objective.
Exactly. That's why I think, like, good point, like right now, we see this jumping up to 21, here 99. Here we go. We talk about this, guys. It's happening right now. Negative 100 on the supply demand. So these are orders that are coming in live right now. Now it's plus 11. And I think this is similar. I was going to mention this and I actually did it. So it's like I willed it. But you see this when it's starting to go down, then you'll get spikes up. I see it almost as like they're trying to control this drop. They're trying to fill these orders and say, no, we're not coming down. That's almost what it feels like to me.
Yeah, when you get the offsets like that, when it's plus 100, minus 100, plus 100, minus 100, they're coming in and they're just filling those orders at the current price, so it doesn't affect the price too much.
Right.
Yeah. When you get one that, like we saw, when was it? A couple weeks ago, we saw the one for minus 963 on the Dow.
Yeah, somebody had emailed or mentioned in the chat somewhere about that, where there was the start of the big decline.
Yeah.
Yep. Or I should say one of the most recent ones. I shouldn't say the big one.
Yeah. They don't want to fill. Somebody didn't want to take the other side. They didn't want to take it. Well, when they don't want to take it, that means there's no buyers left.
Right. So that's a lot of our chop there. Did I miss anything? Oh, we should mention crypto, because look at what Bitcoin's doing right now. We just broke 18,000 again.
Yeah, we've been kind of hanging around there. We've been around the 18,000. It got down to 18 or 17.2, I think, in the overnight session a couple days ago.
Yep.
My wife woke me up at 2 o'clock in the morning and said, "Hey, we just dropped 1,000 points on BTC. Maybe we should buy some." And I'm going back to sleep, honey. Thanks. It's back over 18, but I think we're kind of. What you got that on a daily chart? Go to like a 1 hour or something. It looks kind of like it's consolidating here.
Yeah, we're starting. We'll take a consolidation at higher before it moves higher again.
Yeah. So consolidation here. The US dollar index is going to be really the driver. We got a nice bounce off of the DXY this morning. It's been a little bit more volatile than usual, but there's definitely a bounce there. And we kind of have to wait to see what happens there.
So a nice little move. Ethereum's up. That even today, a little bit down. XRP, nice move ups, right around 30 cents now. So crypto community's happy.
Yeah, it's been doing well. So hopefully, we get the, just like in 2017, we had the big Bitcoin rally. 2 weeks later, all the altcoins went up. So let's see what happens. But it might be a potential catalyst here for the altcoins.
Steven's got a question here on the VXX indicator and the Wilders. Has a weird move and started moving in the same direction, he says. Let's take a look at a little bit more data here. Let me squeeze it in. So this one's got all of them layered on the SPY VIX, the VXX trade indicator, moving up. So here's the signal too, guys. These are all moving closer to the higher levels. That's the ding, ding, ding. Red alert goes off.
Well, the VXX trade system indicator almost hit 20 yesterday, which is the high level. It hit 19.96. I was watching it.
And if you look at the SPY VIX that we also watch, just by itself, the SPY minus the VIX, look at where this guy is. Look at long term. Here's earlier in the year. Well, we're up even higher. I don't think I can squeeze it anymore. That's about as far back as that one goes.
Yeah, and so we've got a divergence here between the VXX trade system indicator on a daily basis in the market. So it's lower than it was back in February, but the market is actually higher. So there's a divergence there that I'm kind of watching.
Yep, so that's right up your alley. So Stephen heard that one coming. So that's a big one to keep an eye on because, as Dave just said, we're higher than we were before. And the VX, so it's not lining up. So prepare yourself.
Yeah, look at those divergences. Those divergences I look at and I think about them and I say, well, I mean, if you look at, there's a lot of divergences right now. If you look at stochastics on a weekly and a monthly basis for the Dow and the S&P 500, there's also huge divergences there. So it's not just the VXX indicator either. Yeah, there's the big divergence. Yeah, that's a great divergence on the VXX trade system. There's also one on stochastics, which a lot of people pay attention to. And the only time that the monthly indicator for stochastics has been in a divergence with the S&P 500 was in 2000, 2008, and today. Yeah. So we'll see what happens here, but
keep an eye on those.
Yeah, the market has two options here. If we go higher from here, we're going to hit 31,000, and I think we're going to have a big drop. If we can't recover, if we kind of go sideways, we can't really get any. I mean, look at the internals right now are just flat. They're just really, really flat. And so if we don't get any real boost in the internals and the market goes higher, that's a sure sign of a impending sell-off. If we start to move lower from here, and this kind of looks like a transition in the market with the internals down, but the market kind of going sideways, but tech stocks really getting killed. Zoom went from like 588 down to 390 yesterday, so it's down 200 points. Oh, you can bring up one chart if you want before we finish. It's kind of interesting.
What do you got?
YY.
YY?
Yeah.
Let me find my plain Jane one over here.
Talk about getting sold off. This is a company whose revenues, it's a Chinese company, of course, that has fake revenue. 90% of the revenue is fake. And so there's a company called Muddy Waters Research that came out with a report on it yesterday. And boy, the stock sold off pretty hard this morning. It'd be interesting to see if it's still sold off or the Robinhood traders came in to scoop it up at the bottom.
Let's see. I'm working on it. I got to get a plain Jane with my. I lost a chart here. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, I tried to put it as a futures contract. That's too. I tried to do /YY for a second.
Oh no. It's just YY as a symbol.
Let's see where we're at.
I forgot the name of the. You got it on your review.
We'll turn all these guys off.
Yeah,
Holy cow!
Look at that drop from about 100 down to 72. It just felt. I guess somebody still thinks it's a bargain, even though 90% of their revenue is fake. They've been back up to 87. Jeez.
Look at that! Wow.
Yeah.
Joy Incorporated ADR.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. It's a Chinese company though, so. And we still haven't heard anything from Ant Financial IPO.
I saw that there was still some life in something there saying that's a possibility, but I didn't read too much more into that one.
I think they're dead.
Don't let him hear you say that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, a little bounce up. It's trying to recover. We'll see. Not a whole lot going to happen unless it gets one way or the other.
Yeah, not real strong. Not real strong on the advanced decline. We shall see. We still got a long day ahead of us. Any final questions, guys? Everybody, I wish everybody a happy holiday. I'm going to beat you to the punch on that. It is Thanksgiving next week, and then of course Christmas. I'm not sure. Are we going to do one before Christmas or no? Not unless anything big happens, I think.
Yeah, I think we should probably do at least one in the early part of December. We'll do a check-in with you guys, see how things are going. But yeah, definitely, guys, enjoy Thanksgiving if you celebrate it. And we will be back sometime in December for another live. But as always, we'll be in the rooms. We're always available via email. Let us know. I am working on some things in the back end. You guys are going to like it when I release it. I know you've seen some early peeks into some of the things that's happening, but I know you guys always want new, fresh stuff and new strategies, and the current ones work. We got another one coming for you.
Nice. Test them out, trade them.
Exactly.
Tell us all about it.
With that, gentlemen, we'll probably call her. Dave, I appreciate everything that you do for us, so thank you again.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Steven, have a great Thanksgiving or holidays, whatever you guys got going on. BD is here. Mark?
Yeah, make sure you check out the recording. There's some good stuff in the first half, so check it out when it's up.
Yeah, definitely. All right, guys, have a great day. Talk to you soon.
Take it easy, guys.